I'm not envious at all, but I must say, Olya, you and Mishka are incredibly lucky to have such a wonderful family. I can't remember a single quarrel between you two. Everything seems so peaceful. And your son, with parents like you, how could he not be amazing? Mishka truly takes after his father. Two planks on the stoop served as seats for Olga and Irina, who had bumped into each other at the store. Irina had to head to the next street, but Olga had some time to spare, and as it often happens, she wanted to indulge in some idle chatter. Hearing her acquaintance's praise, Olga let out a sigh and cast her gaze upon the wilted flowers in her front garden, swaying gently in the light breeze. "Looks like it might rain," she remarked, glancing up at the sky. "Something's definitely brewing." Without waiting for a response, Irina rose from her seat and grabbed her bag. "Well, I should be off now. It's getting late. Make sure to visit once in a while, you know, with all the work and everything." "I will, Irisha, I promise," Olga assured her. With that, Olga hurriedly entered her house. Her son Dimka had already returned from work and locked himself in his room. Just the other day, he had broken up with his almost fiancée after discovering she was seeing someone else. The separation had hit Dimka hard, and he still walked around with a gloomy expression. Olga, like any mother, couldn't help but feel immense sympathy for him. Her son, who is now 20 years old, had grown so much since his early childhood days, and seeing him suffer was truly heart-wrenching. "Mitya, you should eat something," Olga gently suggested. "Later, Mom. I don't feel like it," Dimka replied despondently. "Well, don't torment yourself. Everything will pass, even this pain. You'll find a girl who truly deserves you, and we'll organize the most beautiful wedding for you. And most importantly, you'll live happily ever after," Olga reassured him. Dimka mechanically ate his food, chewing absent-mindedly just to have something in his mouth. "I'm going to Pashka's," he announced. "Go ahead, my son. Perhaps you'll find some joy there." As soon as Mikhail arrived from work, Olga eagerly went to meet him, hoping to hug him just like she had done so many years ago. However, she was met with her husband's cold gaze. Confused, Olga began setting the table, trying to ignore the frown on her husband's face. They both ate in silence, Mikhail's manner almost as monotonous as their son Dimka's. Frustrated by their distant behavior, Olga finally spoke up. "Mish, what's wrong with you and Dimka? You both seem so distant, like you're lost in your own worlds." Mikhail, his dark curly hair starting to have a few specks of gray, looked at his wife intently. Olga's own dark, slightly wavy hair matched his, and they had been considered a beautiful and happy couple since their youth. However, after 7 years of marriage, Olga had been unable to conceive, leading to speculation and hints that something was wrong with her ability to have children. Nevertheless, Mikhail had always been supportive, reassuring her that they would have a child in due time. And indeed, after 7 years, Olga finally became pregnant, bringing relief to their families. However, after giving birth, Olga fell into a deep depression, as her friend Irina had noticed during their recent visit. She had lost her spark, her gaze had dulled, and she would often cry without explanation, clutching the baby to her chest. Meanwhile, Mikhail seemed to thrive, taking on the role of a doting father, eagerly taking care of diaper changes and preparing meals whenever Olga was overwhelmed. Gradually, Olga's sadness subsided, replaced with a deep love for both her son and her husband. Olga approached Mikhail and gently touched his curly hair, but he deftly moved away, avoiding her touch. Confused and growing more worried, Olga implored, "What's the matter? Please tell me." Mikhail pushed his plate away, his expression heavy with uncertainty. "I don't know yet, but I need to find the truth," he finally confessed. "I don't even know how to bring this up, but I need to ask you directly, is Dimka really my son?" Olga struggled to catch her breath, her body freezing as her hand instinctively moved to her neck, as if trying to loosen the tight collar of her blouse. "Misha, why are you doing this? Who is behind all of this?" she pleaded, desperation evident in her voice. It doesn't matter who said what, Misha retorted, his tone harsh. Just answer me honestly, is Dimka my son or not? Olga felt her cheeks blush and her words stumbled out, From you? Yes, Dimka is your son. Then why are you acting like this? Why are you avoiding the truth? Olga cried, her voice cracking with emotion. Dimka is my son, our son. That's what we should be focusing on, not whatever else is going on between us. Mikhail abruptly stood up from his chair, his frustration evident. This conversation is going nowhere, he muttered, unable to hide his disappointment. Olga's hands shook as she began to put away the dishes, causing her to drop a fork and spoon nervously. She glanced quietly into the hall, where Mikhail was carefully flipping through their family album, lost in the memories captured in the photos of their son and himself. Though Olga wanted to remain silent, biting her lip and refraining from touching him, she couldn't contain the excitement trembling within her. Why are you going through that? What are you comparing? What do you want to discover? She asked softly. They don't look alike at all, Mikhail muttered, his voice filled with concern, completely different in appearance. He hardly even resembles you. Olga took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. Well, he looks like himself, she replied, her voice steady. It happens sometimes. Children don't always resemble their parents. Look at Dimka, for example. His hair is also dark like yours. Mikhail's tone grew stern. Don't speak to me like that. Let me tell you something. Until today, I never had a single doubt. But now, everything has changed. People who were with you on that business trip. Do you remember when you went for that 2-week training almost 20 years ago? Olga felt her face grow hot, as if it were burning from within. She looked at her husband, desperately searching for the right words to say, her mind in turmoil. Yes, imagine I ran into a classmate today, and you can probably guess who it was. She's been living in the city for a long time, which is why we haven't seen each other for so many years. So Olia, who is Yuri Georgievich, Misha, he's your son. Dimka is your son, the woman said wearily. Olga, we can verify this. I'll do anything. Mikhail spoke calmly, but there was a hint of steel in his voice. Olga sat down on the sofa, placing a white towel on her knees. She remained silent for a moment. There's no need to verify anything, Misha. It seems that the truth is destined to be revealed. All these years, I believed that Dima was your son. I initially doubted myself, even secretly had tests done, thinking that I couldn't conceive. They said there was nothing wrong with me, that I was healthy. That's when I realized that having a child with you was unlikely. She began to rub the towel, folding it neatly and then unfolding it again. I never intended to deceive you. I loved you, and I still love you. It just happened this way. And when I discovered I was pregnant, I convinced myself that it was your child. Even as he grew older and it became evident who he resembled, I kept silent, unable to leave you. Forgive me, Misha. Forgive you? Mikhail jumped up and almost shouted. It was a cry of pain, akin to the roar of a wounded animal. You have been deceiving me all these years. How could you? I didn't father a child, and he's from someone else, in your damn affair. I did it, because I love you, because you never gave me a child. You're lying. I don't believe you. I'm as healthy as can be. It's you. Olga found herself in an unfamiliar situation as a flurry of curses rained down upon her for the first time in her life. The verbal storm came to a halt only when Dimka, her son, appeared at the doorstep, his curious gaze interrupting the tense atmosphere. What's all this shouting? What happened? Dimka questioned, trying to make sense of the chaotic scene. Nothing, son. Go to your room, we'll handle it ourselves, Olga responded, attempting to shield him from the troubling situation. No, wait, interrupted Mikhail, Olga's partner. Why are we treating him like a child? Why don't we speak truthfully? He's an adult now. He has the right to know. Approaching his son gently, Mikhail took Dimka's hand and continued, Sit down, son. You're not a little boy anymore, and you won't be overwhelmed by the truth. And then the words spilled out, revealing a shocking secret. It was accidentally discovered that I am not your biological father. Your mother gave birth to you by another man. That's what's going on. Dimka stared at his parents in disbelief. This is nonsense. Have you been watching soap operas? No, Dimka. We're living through our own real-life drama, Mikhail confessed, his voice heavy with the weight of the revelation. He paced around the room, absent-mindedly massaging his neck as if trying to relieve the burden he had just dropped. Olga, mustering her courage, approached her son and gently said, "It's true, my dear. That's how it happened. And I promise, I will tell you everything." "Listen," Mikhail yelled, "the truth is out now, and you've been hiding it for 20 years. No more pretending. I wasn't pretending. I loved you. Don't even talk to me about love." Mikhail interrupted fiercely. "You have 3 days to leave. This house is mine, my parents' house, registered in my name. You can go to your sister's or your mother's in the neighborhood. I don't care." "Mom, why would you do this?" Dimka's voice quivered. "Calm down, son," she said softly, her lips trembling. "Let's handle this calmly. Afterward, we'll leave together." "Why would Dimka go with you?" Mikhail halted in the middle of the room. "It's not Dimka's fault. He's still my son, and he always will be, no matter how many children I have. And believe me, I will have children. Just not with you." He approached his son. "Dima, stay here. This is your home, and I'm your father. I raised you, and it's not your fault." "Dima, pack your things," Olga requested, her voice gentle yet firm. "We're leaving now. I can understand how hurt and disappointed you are, Dima," the father replied, looking sympathetically at his son. "But not all women are like that. Your mother made some poor decisions, but that doesn't mean everyone is the same. It's important to remember that people's actions don't define an entire gender." Dima nodded, his expression still full of pain. "I know, Dad, but it's hard for me to trust right now. Alyanka betrayed me, and it feels like my whole world has fallen apart." Mikhail sighed, realizing the depth of his son's pain. "It's understandable that you feel that way, Dima. Betrayal can be incredibly painful, but don't let this experience define your relationships in the future. People make mistakes, and it's important to give them another chance if they show genuine remorse and change." Determined, Dima looked his father in the eye. "I understand, Dad, but for now, I want to stay with you. I need some time to heal and figure things out." Olga, who had been listening in silence, couldn't help but feel hurt and rejected. "Dima, don't you love me anymore? I'm your mother, and I've always been there for you." Dima's voice remained firm as he replied, "I still love you, Mom, but right now, I need to be with Dad. You hurt him too, and he didn't deserve that. It's not about choosing sides, it's about what feels right for me." Mikhail, proud of his son's maturity, spoke up. "Dima's right, Olga. We all have our own healing to do. It's important to respect his decision and give him the space he needs." Olga felt a mix of emotions, but tried to keep her composure. "Fine, if that's what you both want. I'll leave today and start the process of divorce. We can settle everything legally." Mikhail shook his head. "No, Olga, let's not make this more painful than it already is. We don't need a messy public divorce. Take whatever you want from the house, and we can figure out the rest between ourselves. And as for Dima, he's always been my son, and he always will be. We'll deal with your betrayal as a family." Olga sighed, realizing that her actions had consequences that couldn't be undone. "All right, if that's what you want. But don't think I'm taking advantage of the situation. This hurts me too. I'll gather my things quietly and leave." Mikhail nodded. "Thank you for understanding, Olga. Let's try to handle this as civilly as possible for Dima's sake. He's already been through enough." And with that, both parents silently went about their preparations, acknowledging the pain and uncertainty that lay ahead, but remaining determined to keep their son's well-being as their top priority. Olga shut the suitcase and turned to Mikhail. She was in favor of her husband's suggestion. hoping that their divorce wouldn't have a negative impact on Dimka. All right, let's go along with it. I want to protect Dimka from unnecessary gossip, she said, gesturing towards the pots and frying pan on the stove. I prepared some rsolnik, cutlets in the pan, and pasta in a small saucepan for you. There are also dumplings and minced meat in the freezer, enough to sustain you for a while. I have to go to work now. Then I'll visit Aunt Masha in the evening and head to my mother in the district center over the weekend. Mikhail stood by the wash basin, clutching a towel in his hands, lost in his thoughts. He snapped out of it when the door slammed shut. Sitting on the sofa, he huddled with his arms wrapped around his head, letting out a muffled cry, as if an old wound had been reopened. Dad, what's wrong? Where's Mom? Dimka asked, concerned. It's nothing, son. Your mother went to work, Mikhail replied, trying to compose himself. Dad, I won't abandon you. Don't think I'm too young to understand. I've also experienced betrayal, Dimka said earnestly. Don't worry, son. We'll get through this together. It's just unexpected. I thought she would deny everything, but she admitted it, Mikhail said, a bitter grin forming on his face. Look at you, such a conscientious person. 3 months had passed since Mikhail and Olga's divorce. Dimka still lived with his father, but the house felt empty without Olga's presence. Mikhail tried to stay positive, telling himself and his son that they would get through this difficult time. One day, Mikhail gathered the courage to discuss bringing a woman into the house with Dimka. He asked his son if he would be okay with it. Dimka shrugged his shoulders, giving his father the freedom to make his own choices. I'm not old yet, Dimka. I want to start a new family, have children, Mikhail explained, walking towards his son and gently patting his shoulder. You won't be jealous, will you? Dimka nodded understandingly. I understand, father. Don't worry, I won't take offense. Relieved by his son's support, Mikhail shared his plans. There's a woman I've been getting to know. Her name is Oksana. She's a bit lonely and around 30 years old. But I want this to be serious, without any deception. I want everything to be real. Dimka reassured his father. I understand, father. Thank you for considering my feelings. Let's have her in the house. She can cook for us, and maybe we'll finally get this place in order. By the way, father, have you been in contact with Mom? She's been calling me constantly, asking about you, Dimka replied. She even invited me to come over. Mikhail felt a twinge of guilt. You should go, Dimka. She's your mother after all. Dimka agreed. It'll be fine. I'll go see her soon. Mikhail's heart felt lighter when he met Oksana. The resentment he held towards Olga began to fade away. He saw a future ahead of him, a life without deceit and betrayal. Actually, she hasn't called in 3 days, Dimka confessed. She used to call every day. Mikhail urged his son, then you should call her yourself. Find out what's going on. Dimka pulled out his phone and dialed his mother's number, only to hear that she was unavailable. It felt strange to him, as his mother was always reachable. Daily calls had become their routine, and Dimka assumed it would remain that way. But now, 3 days had passed without a single call, and every time he dialed her number, it said she was unavailable. Maybe you should call Grandma, Mikhail suggested. She might know something. Dimka dismissed the idea, saying, Grandma's hearing is bad. It's pointless to talk to her. Just as Dimka uttered those words, the phone rang. He couldn't believe it when he heard his grandmother's voice on the other end. Grandson, come, she cried out, almost shouting into the receiver. What's wrong? Dimka asked, perplexed. Come, grandson, she repeated urgently. I don't understand any of this, Dimka said, still surprised. The next day, he left work early and gave a ride to a hitchhiker to the district center. Where is Mother? He asked his grandmother, Anya. She's been in the hospital, Alyosha, for the past 3 days, she replied. How did that happen? Why? First, her blood pressure, and then her heart. She called you, but you didn't answer, and it upset her greatly. Dimka was shocked by the news. His mother had always been strong and vibrant, a picture of health. When she walked alongside Mikhail, they turned heads with their beauty. It was difficult for Dimka to accept the fact that his mother was now in the hospital. "You should go and visit her, be kind, my grandson," his grandmother urged. "She's your mother, she carried you under her heart." "Okay, Grandma, I'll go right away," Dimka replied, swiftly leaving his grandmother's small apartment and making his way to the district hospital. As he walked, a loud female voice called out from behind him, "Who's walking around without a coat?" "I'm here to see Olga Seliverstova," Dimka responded, turning to face a tall, dignified woman in a white coat. "Has her son finally shown up?" "Yes, her son. How is she?" the woman asked. "Firstly, make sure to wipe your shoes thoroughly and get a coat. Then go to the 5th ward. But let me prepare her first, as unexpected visits can be quite surprising." "Well, what are you staring at?" "Listen to what the head nurse said," she instructed firmly. "Yeah, I'll do it," Dimka stammered, feeling slightly overwhelmed by the woman's authoritative demeanor. He entered the room with caution, his steps soft so as not to disturb the quiet atmosphere. Confusion filled him as he laid eyes on the pale figure of Olga, his mother. Despite her wariness, she managed to muster a smile. "Hello, my son," she greeted him gently. "Please take a seat. Mommy is feeling a bit under the weather." Her once beautiful face looked fragile, marked with a tinge of sadness. "Mum, I had no idea," he confessed, genuine concern etched on his face. "I called yesterday, but you were unavailable." "Oh, the phone must have run out of battery," she explained, her voice filled with exhaustion. "I haven't had the chance to charge it since I arrived here." "What's going on? Is everything all right?" he inquired with worry. "Oh, it's nothing serious," she reassured him. "They'll fix me up. A friend of mine, Margarita Igorevna, insisted that I needed urgent treatment, so I had to listen." "Is she the tall, strict one?" he asked, recalling the descriptions he had heard. "Well, yes, everyone here seems to be a little afraid of her," his mother chuckled weakly. "But she's actually quite good. They've promised to discharge me in 10 days. Now, tell me about yourself. How have you been? Have you been eating properly? You seem to have lost weight. Maybe you've met someone. Do you have a girlfriend?" "No, Mom, not yet," he replied, trying to ease her worries. "Oh, my dear son, I just want you to be happy," she sighed, her voice filled with love and concern. "But don't worry about me. I'll pull through." Dimka gazed out of the window, trying to hide his vulnerability from his mother. The sight before him weighed heavily on his heart, causing a lump to form in his throat. "Mom, please get well," he whispered, his hand trembling as he held hers. "I promise to call you and Grandma every day." "Don't blame yourself, my son," his mother reassured him, understanding the pain he was going through. "You're still trying to recover from the end of a relationship with someone you deeply loved, and now this news has overwhelmed you." In silence, Dimka pressed his lips together, his hand gently caressing his mother's. After a moment, he found the strength to speak again. "Mom, I love you." A smile spread across Olga's face. "Son, I always knew it. I always believed it. I love you too. Now go and don't worry about me." I'll come tomorrow," Dimka promised. His mother expressed concern. "What about work? You'll need to take time off." "I'll take a week off. I have a valid reason. My mom is in the hospital." Leaving the room, Dimka wiped away a tear, relieved that his mother hadn't witnessed his moment of vulnerability. Margarita Igorevna loomed before the resident's room, a formidable figure resembling a white tower that instilled fear in everyone. Her commanding presence held sway over the entire medical staff, with even the chief physician cowed in her presence. When she joined their ranks 15 years ago, Chief Physician Alexander Nikolaevich remarked after their first encounter, "A grandiose woman." From that day forth, she became known among the nurses as Grandiose Margarita. "Listen, young one," she declared, placing her imposing hand on Dimka's shoulders. "When you visit your mother, you should not come empty-handed. Understand? It was only then that Dimka realized he had forgotten to bring juice. I forgot. Honestly, he admitted, can I run and come back? I'll buy some fruit. Very well, I'll permit it, and get some flowers too. Okay. Dimka rushed out of the hospital and headed to the center, where a flower stall awaited. Returning half an hour later, he hastily grabbed his coat, called out to Margarita, "You promised to spend," and reminded her, "These are for you," as he presented a bouquet. "Not for me, fool. Mother gets flowers. You're just like my other fools, needing to be taught everything." Here, then, Dimka reached into his pocket and produced a chocolate bar. "This is for you." "Well, that's different. We'll indulge in a sweet treat," she conceded. Stepping towards the ward, she instructed, "Give the handover, kiss your mom, and promise to be a model son. Do you understand me?" Dimka nodded, every word from Margarita's mouth compelling his obedience. At home, Dimka spent a long time sitting at the table with his father. The tea had cooled down, but they warmed it up from time to time. They had a heartfelt conversation about Dimka's decision to move to his grandmother's and care for his mother when she came back from the hospital. "Dad, please don't be offended. I just feel that I need to be there for Mom after what she did to you. I believe you were the one who got hurt in this situation," Dimka explained. "I'm not offended, son. Olga has always been a good mother, and I can't deny that. She was also a good wife," his father replied. "Dad, you have every right to move on and get married again. I won't say anything against it," Dimka assured him. "But what about your work? It's quite a distance to travel," his father asked, concerned. "I have already figured it out, Dad. I'll transfer and work in the district center," Dimka responded confidently. During the weekends, Dimka moved to his grandmother's house and started visiting his mother every day in the hospital. Margarita Igorevna greeted him with a smile and would often announce his arrival to Olga. "Olya, meet your visitor," she would say, and then take a moment to sit down on the bed with them. "You have a wonderful son, Olga. You shouldn't have worried," Margarita Igorevna reassured her. "Rita, I want to express my gratitude for your support. Do you remember 15 years ago when I was going through a tough time with Vijaya, and you were there for me? Well, now it's my turn to support you. I understand that things are complicated between you and Misha, but remember, you're too conscientious. If it were someone else, they would have held on and not confessed. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but the most important thing is that you have Dimka by your side, supporting you wholeheartedly. Life is funny. We only seem to meet when something challenging happens. Once you recover, we might go our separate ways again, who knows for how long. But Rita, I truly believe we will meet again soon if we have a good reason. And Dimka, why are you in such a hurry? Slow down and say hello. You're rushing around like a tornado. What's the rush?" The head nurse called out to Dimka, who was sprinting down the corridor, completely out of breath and oblivious to everyone around him. "Oh, hello, Margarita Igorevna. My mom is being discharged, so I'm in a hurry," Dimka replied, still catching his breath. "I can see that. You were flying past so fast, you almost knocked Katya off her feet." As Dimka turned around, he noticed a young nurse entering the ward. Her blonde hair was neatly tucked under a pristine white medical cap, with soft curls peeking out near her temples, swaying with every step she took. Dimka couldn't help but stare at the nurse until she disappeared into the ward. He knew he was in a hurry, as the discharge wasn't prepared yet, and Katya was about to give him a shot, forcing him to wait. Realizing that he had some time, Dimka decided to sit down and wait. Then he remembered the bouquet of flowers he had brought and handed one of the bouquets to the head nurse, Margarita Igorevna, as a token of gratitude for her assistance. With a smile, Margarita explained, "Dmitri, you've mixed up. This bouquet is for my mom. The other one is for me, as a thank you." Surprised, Dimka glanced at Margarita, unsure of what to do next. Seeing his confusion, Margarita whispered, "Look, Katya is currently giving your mother an injection, along with other procedures, but she handles it all with kindness and support. Perhaps you should give her the bouquet instead." Dimka looked at Margarita in surprise, realizing the kindness and warmth beneath her authoritative facade. Smiling, Margarita added, "Yes, give the bouquet to Katya. Remember Aunt Rita with a kind word." Dimka chuckled as he grasped the significance of Margarita's words. In that moment, he saw the compassionate and caring side of the remarkable Margarita Igorevna, as her colleagues often described her. After bringing his mother home from the hospital, Dimka made the decision to leave his father and move in with his mother and grandmother. He still maintained regular visits with his father, but never stayed for long. It was strange for him to see a stranger living in the house he had grown up in. The furniture had been rearranged, different curtains adorned the windows, and there were new dishes. The most significant change was the presence of Oksana, a short and pretty woman who always had a smile on her face and tried to please Dimka. "Well, why don't you stay a little longer?" his father asked, eager to catch up. "Tell me what's new with you." "Everything is the same. I've already told you." Dimka remained silent, but as they walked out of the gate, he finally confessed, "Everything has changed. You'll see for yourself." His father sighed. "I never expected such a sudden turn of events. How is your mother? How is she feeling?" "She's doing well," Dimka replied. "She has a close friend who is the head nurse at the hospital. She's been assisting with her treatment." "It's amazing how many years we went without Olia complaining," Mikhail commented, wanting to say more but hesitating. "And how are things for you personally?" he added, changing the topic. Dimka hesitated before responding, "Well, it's just the beginning." "Do you have a girlfriend?" his father inquired. "Yes," Dimka admitted. 2 months had passed since his mother's discharge from the hospital, and for Dimka, that day marked not only her recovery, but also the start of his relationship with Katya. On the advice of Margarita Igorevna, a family friend, he had given the bouquet intended for her to nurse Katya, sparking their acquaintance. Olga knew that her son was dating a nurse from the local hospital, but she remained silent and didn't rush to ask questions. Instead, it was Dimka who sought answers. "Mom, please don't worry. There's something I want to discuss, although it might be unpleasant for you," he said. Olga sat down across from him, giving him her full attention. "Dima, I'm listening attentively. Speak freely." "Anyways, I was curious about the man you've been dating. You know what I mean. You want to know who your real father is, your biological father?" She gently ran her palm over the tablecloth, attempting to smooth out a small wrinkle. "I don't know much about him. We crossed paths by chance, and we ended things quickly. I did everything I could to prevent him from finding me. He didn't even know my last name. Sometimes, he would be mentioned in the newspapers. He held a high position in the region at that time and had recently gone through a divorce. I chose to leave and intentionally not search for him. Well, if you want to learn more about him, the library has archives of our regional newspaper. He was often featured in it, and there might even be a portrait. 10 years ago, I found out from the newspaper that he passed away. His name was Yuri Georgievich Prokhorov. Son, please understand, despite the fact that your biological father is Yuri Georgievich, I have always loved your father, Mikhail, because he raised you and cared for you as much as I did. I know that, Mom, I understand. You don't need to apologize. I'll go to the library and read the newspapers. I just need to know something." Dimka hadn't been to the library since his school days. In high school, he only visited when necessary. This time, he spent over 2 hours there, flipping through old copies, examining different faces. A few articles caught his attention, and he even stumbled upon a photograph. He gazed into the eyes of a stranger and noticed familiar features. At first, he struggled to remember where he had seen this face, but then he realized that he simply resembled the man who had no knowledge of his existence. Leaving the hall feeling tired, but with a sense of lightness in his heart, Dimka couldn't help feeling immense sympathy for his mother, father, and even this stranger, Yuri Georgievich. He longed to live a life free of mistakes in the next 10, 20, or 30 years. "Hello, Olya, I'm here," Mikhail announced as he stomped down the hallway, hesitating to remove his jacket. Olya, dressed in a homely manner, greeted him warmly and beckoned him to the table. "Hello, Misha. Take off your jacket, wash your hands, and let's have lunch together," she said with a smile. Mikhail eagerly removed his jacket and headed to the bathroom, explaining to Olya as he went, "I called you right away as soon as Dimka told me. It's a big deal. My son has decided to get married, but I haven't met the bride yet." Olya assured him she's a good bride, a very nice girl. "But don't worry, Dima promised to come with Katya, maybe even tomorrow, so you'll get a chance to meet her." Sitting down at the table, Mikhail coughed slightly, prompting Olya to ask, "Do you have a cold?" Mikhail dismissed it, saying, "No, it's just a sore throat. Anyway, that's not why I came. I wanted to discuss how we should organize the celebration and the financial aspect. There will definitely be money involved, and we also need to think about a gift. Should we do it separately or together?" Olya replied, "I'm not sure. It's up to you. It's not like you're alone anymore." Mikhail hesitated before responding, "I don't know if I'm truly not alone anymore. I rushed into things by moving Oksenka then. What's the connection between Oksana and our breakup, Misha? It's not fair to blame her for how things ended so quickly. Olya, I was hasty, talking about children and all. What children now? My time has passed, and it's unlikely I'll have any more children. I already have a son, Dimka. So maybe we should give ourselves another chance. Reunite, I mean." Olga covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking as she tried to cry silently. "Olya, please don't cry. You understand, finding out something like this? And you know how I found out? Through Alka Koptiva. She's married into the Serebrianskaya family. And you know where I bumped into her? In town at the auto parts store. She divorced her husband and now owns the store. While I was talking to the clerk, she recognized me and came over with a smile. Remember how she used to pursue me back in school? Anyway, she hinted that she was single now and invited me over. But I laughed it off and said, it didn't work out when we were young, so why bother now? My words offended her, so she mentioned she had seen you. I didn't believe her, so I left. But then, I got curious and decided to find out the truth. Well, I found out. Olga sighed, "Let's have lunch." "Olya, now that we know the truth, let's give our love another chance. Because I love you and I know you love me too." "That's true, Misha. We do have love, but we won't find happiness together. I know you'll say you forgive me, but deep down, I'll always feel guilty, and that will keep us from being truly happy." "No, Misha, it's not meant to work between us. What makes you think I won't forgive you? Maybe I've already forgiven you." "Misha, the more love we have, the harder forgiveness becomes. Let's start planning our son's wedding. I'm incredibly grateful to you for Dimka. You're the best father in the world." "All right, let's do it, but it's not the right time yet." He gazed at Olga as if trying to etch her image into his memory. "Why are you staring at me like that? It's been so long since I've seen you. It's almost unbelievable that you're here. By the way, I've transferred the house under Dimka's name. He is our heir. Well, let's have dinner and discuss the wedding plans. It'll be challenging for me to handle everything alone. Above all, let's strive to be kind to each other throughout this whole situation."